Recently, I've been doing a lot of consulting work in schools where there are high percentages of multilingual learners and students that also, whether they're MLLs or not, students that struggle in being engaged. They're not naturally motivated to learn certain things. And teachers have been coming up to me complaining, saying the students are motivated. But what I often ask teachers to do is to reframe that and to think of it in terms of what can we as educators do to change the design of the lessons and the assignments that we're asking students to complete. And I know that takes work and that takes effort, and teachers are really busy teaching a lot of classes with a lot of students. So, how can we use AI for this purpose? So, what you see here is, of course, my Have a Life Teaching AI coach. And I've already pre populated it with some prompts that I want to take a look at right now with you about how we can augment our assignments to focus on the core content that we want to engage our students in, but to do it in more engaging, real world relevant ways, and also ways that our multilingual learner students can show proficiency, particularly if they don't have necessarily the English language level of performance that we want them to have, that they could still show their knowledge in the various content areas. So what I did here is I put in a prompt that, for example, I'm an eighth grade teacher in New Jersey, teaching about the Holocaust. What are the learning objectives I want students to meet by learning the Holocaust or learning more about the Holocaust? And so what you see here is my navigation bar. That comes up every time somebody initially in a new session posts a prompt. But what you'll notice is it immediately answers the prompt and it says these are the various objectives that you want your students in eighth grade to meet to when they're studying the Holocaust. For example, and I'm just going to focus on the first one for right now. Let's say it's explain the historical causes and conditions that led to the Holocaust, including anti Semitism, totalitarianism, propaganda, economic instability, etc. So now that I have what my core lesson objective is, let's say I'm going to do a lesson around the causes of the Holocaust. Then what I did is I put in this prompt that you see here on the top. Take this learning intention, explain the historical causes and conditions that led to the Holocaust. And that it gives me my learning intention. And then it's going to refine the learning intention, making it student friendly so students can understand. That's an I can explain statement. So students will know at the end of the lesson if they've met that objective, along with the success criteria that will help them to do that. And then I also want to show you this prompt. You want to try to allow students some voice and choice in terms of inputs. In other words, the materials you're using to teach whatever you're teaching, and outputs, the products that students develop to show their level of understanding. You want to make sure that you're actually soliciting the same level of thinking, no matter what resources you're using to teach, and no matter what products students are completing or creating to show their level of proficiency. And so, with our learning objective being non negotiable, here is how it says part one, the AI, in terms of redesigning inputs. In other words, how students can access the content. So you could have a short reading on post World War One Germany. You can have an excerpt from a Nazi propaganda text or speech, a brief overview of anti Semitism in Europe, maybe a timeline. You could have some data around economic instability in Germany after World War One, evidence of government control, et cetera, et cetera. So you see that you can be really varying the resources that you're using. Now, I didn't do it here, but the next step would be give me some specific resources that where you have links to where they are on the internet that I could use. That will help with that. You could also give them a case pack where, again, you give them a pack of information and then students need to discuss either alone or with each other which condition is most visible in each source. How do these conditions reinforce each other? In other words, what were those conditions that led to the Holocaust? Now let's take a look at redesigning outputs. Again, you want to give students some choice in how they are showing you they learned the content. So yes, they can do an analytical writing on what they learned about the causes of the Holocaust. Maybe they could do a diagram, flowchart, or concept map. So maybe they could do a podcast. Our technology is getting to the point where they could be doing that too. So those are some examples of how you can vary inputs and outputs as a way both to engage your reluctant learners and to make the content more accessible, particularly to MLLs. Then I also asked it, what can I do if I want to have kids create a product that where the skills that they're using in creating that product are real world examples of things that they will need to do, for example, on the job. And so you see the prompt that you could use to do that. And what it did for me was it gave me some different options. It could say, for example, in this example, the AI is saying that the students are junior historical analysts working for a Holocaust education and research organization. This is even getting into project-based learning a little bit. You can even have them speak to someone, for example, at the various Holocaust museums that there are. The authentic task is students are producing a background brief explaining these concepts. And then in terms of what they deliver or their deliverable, it could be a written historical brief. It could be a causal systems report. Again, it's showing that these are real world activities that real world historians engage in. And it also gives students that flexibility in how they show you what they know as well. And then I also want to show you how you can use exemplars, because I'm a big fan of showing students what the ultimate product is that you want them to produce. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, 150, I would say 1,000 teachers have told me when I've suggested this, but I don't want my student to just copy the exemplar. Of course, so that's why you want to use a prompt or create a prompt where you ask for an exemplar from another concept that still takes in the same level or type of questioning and thinking. So AI really can help teachers do all this very quickly, succinctly, efficiently, and more thoroughly, actually. So the exemplar that the AI gave us is how conditions led to the Rwandan genocide. So again, not only is it a different context, but it is showing students those similarities and the synthesis among events. So those are just some of the ways. And then again, let me just go through this before I conclude. Here's your annotations for the Rwandan genocide exemplar. And then again, you could post that on your wall and have students look at that as they're doing the Holocaust assignment to see if they're understanding what it is that they need to be doing. You could direct them there rather than just answering all their questions. And again, a lot of great ways to really make not only thinking more visible, not only making thinking more rigorous, but again, allowing students choice and voice in how they learn it and how they show you they learned it. And again, that's great for your multilingual learners as well as for students who struggle in being motivated. My name is John Shabari from Have a Life Teaching. I help teachers teach and school leaders lead. So if you are a teacher looking for coaching support, you can reach out to me on my Subs account. I offer the use of this AI coach along with direct messaging coaching service for $19 a month. And if you are a school leader looking to either use my bot or create your own bot for your own professional development initiatives, I hope you reach out. I can help you with that. And I am an education consultant by trade as a former curriculum director. Curriculum instruction and assessment is my wheelhouse. So even if you're not necessarily interested in the AI aspect, if you do want to improve the pedagogy of your educators, I do also hope you reach out.